Hi, everyone. I'm Scott McKinnon. I'm a research associate at the University of Wollongong and the co-editor with Margaret of the book that we're here to launch tonight. So I'll begin by acknowledging that we're meeting tonight on unceded Aboriginal land. I am on Dharawal country. I want to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I know that I've got UOW colleagues tuning in from Dharawal, Yuin and Wadi Wadi country, and colleagues and friends from Gadigal land. But we, as Margaret says, there are about 100 of us here tonight. And if you'd like to do so, please acknowledge country where you are via the chat function. And it would be great to see that coming in. And given the theme of our book, I particularly want to acknowledge Indigenous people's ongoing relationships to and knowledges of country and the need to centre those knowledges in our responses to environmental change. So thank you all for joining us. It's just a delight to see so many people. As Margaret says, this is beyond our expectations. I did suggest to some of my work colleagues that they pour a glass of wine in a plastic cup and have some cheese and Jats crackers just to get that full book launch experience. So hopefully you've all got yourself sorted in some way there. I'm just going to spend a few minutes introducing the book now, and then I'll introduce Professor Tom Griffiths, and then we'll hear from some of the contributors to the book, the people that you can see there on the screen discussing their work, and then, as Margaret says, we'll open it up to questions through the chat. So, Disasters in Australia and New Zealand, Historical Approaches to Understanding Catastrophe is one of the outputs from a Vice-Chancellor's postdoctoral fellowship that I've recently completed at the Australian Centre for Culture, Environment, Society and Space, or ACCESS, at the University of Wollongong. And in that fellowship, I was researching memories of disaster in Australia, and I used a couple of different case studies, the 2003 ACT firestorm, which I'll talk a bit about in a moment, and the 1974 Brisbane floods. And at the time, Margaret Cook was completing her PhD on the history of floods in Brisbane, and that PhD is now a very excellent book called A River with a City Problem that you should all just rush out and buy. And Margaret and I met up to discuss possible collaborations. And one of the things we discussed was the relatively small historiography of disasters in Australia and in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And we were thinking about ways that we could kind of create connections between you and established researchers working in the field, and kind of what we could do, what kind of conversations we could create to build scholarship in the area and promote it a little bit. So we decided one of the ways of doing that would be to host a workshop at UOW. And the result of that workshop is that the majority of the contributors to the book met up on campus at UOW mid last year, back in those long ago times when we were actually able to meet in person. And we spent a really wonderfully productive, inspiring and enjoyable couple of days with just a brilliant group of scholars workshopping the papers that have become this book that we're launching tonight. So I just want to say a quick few thank yous here. Firstly, to ACCESS at UOW, without whom the workshop and book would not have been possible. And I want to do a quick shout out and thank you to Professor Pauline McGurk, the Director of ACCESS, to my postdoc supervisor, Dr. Christine Erickson, and my other ACCESS colleagues and buddies who are here tonight. Second, to the team at Palgrave Macmillan, especially Joshua Pitt, who have been really great to work with on the project. Third, a huge thanks to the contributors to the book who made this whole process just incredibly smooth and enjoyable for Margaret and myself, and who have each added new and valuable perspectives, I think, on this important topic. A thank you to Nick Cook for the beautiful maps that are in the book. And finally, to Margaret Cook, who is the absolute ideal collaborator on a project like this, a fabulous historian and just a joy to work with through the whole way through this process. So I'm really proud of this book. You might have heard lately that studying history won't make you job ready, but what each of the chapters reveals is that historians are responding to our current environmental crisis with scholarship that draws on the past to inform our challenging present. And all it takes now is some politicians to listen. So when we were putting together the book, Margaret and I both hoped that maybe, just maybe, we might be lucky enough to have Professor Tom Griffiths write a foreword for us. And we were delighted that he said yes. And we're equally delighted that he's joined us tonight to help us launch the book.